Hi Nyla, welcome. Please introduce yourself and please tell us how did you connect with PWN at the first time?
Hi, yeah, so I'm Nyla Winning. I've been with Project Right Now for quite a while now. When I was in fifth grade, that was actually before it was even known as Project Right Now. At the time, it was still known as JC Writing Studios. And I had taken a class there, and it was my first real introduction into a real creative writing experience because I'd had little short creative writing experiences at school, but I hadn't really been in an environment that was really particularly for creative writing. So being in that environment really helped to sort of jumpstart my writing career. And it was a really positive experience that I was glad I was able to have at a young age because it then really rolled into something much, much bigger, fortunately.
How did you basically find about PWN in the first place?
So since I was so young, I actually found about it through my mom. My mom had signed me up through a class. She must have seen a flyer or something hanging up. I was just a little child, so I wasn't the one in charge, but she signed me up and I had continued taking classes for many, many years later.
So, what do you enjoy the most about PWN?
I really feel it's important to me to have a sense of solidarity with the people that I'm around, and being able to be in an environment of all writers really binds people together because writers have very specific experiences and also not only experiences but ways of interpreting the world around them. So it's very important to be in an environment in which people are surrounded with sort of the same mindset, idea, and perception as you. So it really makes you feel like you're part of a community when you're able to just be among lots of other like minded people, and especially people in your age range too, because all the time I had plenty of friends at school, but I didn't really have any writer friends. So it's difficult to, in school especially, find like academic peers, if that makes sense. So it was good to be in an environment of other writers that were my age that shared similar values, similar experiences, and similar just views and perceptions of the world.
No, tell us more about your writing. Like, what do you like to write, or some pieces that you really love to read about? Anything.
Because I was often, like many other people, so preoccupied with school and everything that was going on in my life, socially, politically, academically, whatever it was, that was hard to just find time to sit down and focus on writing in my own home. So it was really beneficial, especially when classes were in person, to be able to go to a space that was dedicated specifically to writing, where I know I can get in the mindset of I'm writing, I'm going to, however long the class was, maybe an hour and a half, I was going to dedicate that time of my week to writing. So it was really beneficial to just have a space that almost not forced me, that isn't the right word, but really allowed me to just concentrate in on writing and get in the moment and really hone in. And sort of following the path of like what kind of writing I like. I'm a poet, so I love writing poetry. It's been in my blood. It's been what I've surrounded with since I was a child, and it really was beneficial to be able to be in a space in which I could really focus in on my poetry instead of having so many distractions of the world.
One life lesson that PWN has given you.
Actually, you know what? It has to be two experiences. One was leading teen writing group because I learned quickly that leading a group is much much different than taking it. It really forced me to have a lot more awareness of my surroundings and what my peers were doing and how to really sort of initiate feedback and conversation between different people. And it was definitely a learning curve at first. It was really difficult because it's hard to be sort of an administrator. It's hard to run things, and it's something that I had never really done before. It was difficult because I had to try and find a balance between, okay, well, what is my responsibility as somebody who is running the class, but also how can I relate to my peers in a way that I'm not trying to seem like I am above them or I am more than them? What is a relatable way that I can communicate to people my age, still remain a little bit of authority and sort of presence in the room, and also just how to conduct and work with other people in general because people are very unpredictable. You never know quite what you're getting into. So it was just a valuable experience of sort of group work and working along with my peers. So I had participated in the Teen Fellowship program with Jen Gates for one academic year. And that was so so interesting and wonderful because it really sort of advanced my academic sort of standard for writing because I was able to, like I was saying before, really hone into the space of writing. And instead of being in a space of usually just peers, where we're almost limited because we are all the same age, having someone who's significantly older than me and offers so much more life experience and writing experience, especially, was really, really important to me as a writer. She was giving me so many different resources to pull from. Jen was giving me all sorts of books I had never heard of or things I had never read before, introduced me to all sorts of poets like Ocean Vuong and one of my new favorite books, Poet X. Just wonderful, wonderful works and even TED Talks and things like that. And I really admire how she was able to pull from so many different sources and then provide something to me that I was able to take it all and put it into something really great and sort of physical and constructed. So those were two really great things that I was able to get out of my experience at Project Right Now.
I am so beyond excited to hear all these things from you. It's great. So now for the other segment, I wanted to ask just 3 or 4 short questions. Some writing tips, and other one is any quote you like, or a quote you follow every day in your life, and something, a tip that you would want to give to your younger self.
Sure. A writing tip that I would give is don't ever throw anything out. Don't you ever throw anything out you've ever written. I don't care how terrible it is and how awful. I have poems from when I was 10, 11 years old, and they are miserable. They're terrible. They're absolutely terrible. But it is such a fulfilling experience to revisit them because you're able to see how far you've come as a writer. You are looking at a time capsule when you see that writing is this is really the mindset I was in when I was 10 years old, 11 years old, or even yesterday. You can look back at the writing you did yesterday and not like it or really like it, but it really is a preserved time capsule of your perspective and your experience at that time. And it really allows you to grow as a writer because it allows you to take the good and the bad from it of okay, I didn't like what I did there, but what didn't I like about it? How can I not repeat that? Or I really enjoyed the way I did this. I enjoyed that little bit of alliteration, or I enjoyed that metaphor I used. How can I continue to do things like that? Less writing related, but a quote that I sort of think about a lot that really inspired me is something from Lady Gaga, and I'm not going to get the wording quite right, but it's this idea that you'll be so much happier knowing you made a difference than if you were standing by. You'll never remember the time proudly that you stood and stand by and watch something negative happen. You'll never feel proud about that, but you'll always feel proud about being different and standing out and taking initiative. To paraphrase, sort of be yourself and take the moment that you're not going to remember the time when you were maybe getting some backlash for being different or being perceived as different. You're going to remember being different and you're going to remember being proud and happy for that. And I guess you can sort of put that into writing perspective too, because it sometimes writing is scary, especially when you get to sort of the publishing segment of it and reaching out your work to people and having the risk of your writing being denied. And that's just part of life. I've submitted to so many things. I haven't won any awards yet. None. But then again, it didn't push me down either. It just makes me want to work harder to get those awards. So just push yourself and dare to be different. And that's sort of what the essence of that quote is.
Thank Nyla so much for her time that she dedicated for the interview. I know you were busy, but thank you so much.
I'm Alex, and I run the teen writing group at Project Right Now. I am in 11th grade. I go to Mass, and I was actually a member of teen writing group before I joined it. So when I joined Project Right Now, Nyla and Sophia were actually the teen leaders, and they made me feel really welcome from day one. And from day one, I also knew that if I needed to step up to be the next leader, I would, because I want to provide the same sense of community and the same motivation that they did for me. And they helped me through like a tough sophomore year. And I definitely want to be there for other young writers going through similar things that I was.
Since we already know that you're a team leader here, so we know that you're an avid writer and reader. What do you like to write about the most?
I like to write about myself and my experiences the most, I think, because no one knows about you more than yourself. So personally, I like to write about myself the most because I feel like it can really pull out the most emotion.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, because sometimes when I write by myself, I feel like a sense like, okay, I only know this and I can put in however much I know because it's like all about me. I don't have to go out and see that I'm wrong or something. But yeah, how has PWN influenced your writing life?
Project Right Now has made me more confident in public speaking, definitely, because in the beginning, I was really scared to share my writing because I thought that people wouldn't like it, or like I just was sort of embarrassed, and it was hard for me. Now I have no problem sending my writing to anyone, reading something, showing people. And I feel like that is pretty important when you're a writer, because you can write all you want, but if nobody hears it, it's not as impactful.
I've only been here like as a intern for like just this summer, but I already felt like I'm more confident in like interviewing right now and like talking with other people and being able to work together. And I actually wanted to ask, how were you able to find out about PWN?
Actually, my mom went to college with Jen. So Jen runs the whole project right now, and they've been good friends because they went to college together. And so when the pandemic hit, they had the Teen Ambassador program, and I'm not sure who reached out to who, but my mom told me about it. And I thought it was a great idea, a great way to get involved with the Project Right Now community. And I started taking more and more classes, and then here we are.
You mentioned that you started off with taking classes. How old were you when you started taking classes, and like how old were you when you started teaching and like leading these classes for PWN?
I think I was 15 when the pandemic hit. So I started when I was 15, and then I continued taking classes when I was 16. And then now I'm 17, and that's around when I started teaching and leading the teen writing group.
From all these classes and like teaching other kids and students how to improve their writing and just being able to spend time with them, what values or lessons did you learn? Like, did the students teach you how to become like more fun or like relaxed, or like what did classes teach you about writing or just, life in general?
Teaching classes have taught me that everybody has their own story, and everybody has their own strengths and weaknesses, and learning a little bit about somebody else's story is pretty interesting. And I feel really grateful that I get to be a part of somebody's writing journey and somebody's story.
What do you enjoy the most about it? Is it like being able to see what other people have to teach you, or like being able to help others?
I think my two favorite things about Project Right Now are the people. I mean, the people are just so supportive, and there's just a community of people who want you to succeed, which is, it's so motivating. And I think also I've become like such a better writer because of it. Like I look back at my old writing and I'm like, what is this? And I sometimes I surprise myself now with what I write, because I didn't think I could write something like that.
That kind of wraps it up. Do you have anything you want to say to like other young writers out there? Because I feel like you have a lot of experience.
If you want to expand your writing abilities, and if you want to become more confident in public speaking, definitely get involved with the community. Project Right Now is a great example of that, but definitely find a community of writers who are going to motivate you and keep you enthusiastic and keep you writing, because once you start doubting yourself, that's when your writing stops and you start to plateau. So just keeping that motivation and that sense of community really helps you grow into a better person.
I totally agree 100%. You guys heard her. Make sure to don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone. You guys never know what might surprise you or what you find to enjoy, because I would never on my own, if my sister didn't tell me about PWN, actually try out for this or like try to send in an application, but you never know. Here I am and I'm having a great time.
So I thought about, talking first about PWN. How did you found it? And, how long, it has been going on and when it started, a little bit if you want to do about that.
We are going to celebrate our 7th birthday this September, which is super exciting. And it started out as an idea that I had probably going back 8 or 9 years ago, where I knew I wanted to bring writing experiences and meaningful writing experiences to people of all ages. And so I am a former magazine editor, and I'm also a former English teacher, high school English teacher. And so I was teaching in Monmouth County, New Jersey, and I left because I had 3 kids under 4. But I still wanted to be able to teach. And I just knew when I was teaching, I had my regular English classes and my creative writing classes, and I just felt like there was something magical happening in the creative writing classes where students were connecting on a deeper way. They were sharing their stories. There was a lot of empathy that was generated. And so I wanted to bring that experience to people of all ages. And I also wanted to create an organization that was open to everybody, regardless of background or ability to pay. So we created a nonprofit organization that has a fee-based component where people come to our studio now on Zoom and take classes, but we do a lot of outreach in our community, and we work with schools, underserved populations, and provide free writing workshops and experiences. It's very dear to my heart. The other thing that I wanted to share about it was part of the inspiration for the organization was I had lost my mom. I was very close to my mother, and she died in 2007 of metastatic lung cancer. And she was someone who had inspired in me just this, if you're on this planet, this was her mantra, if you're on this planet, make a difference. And so when I was creating the organization in partnership with 2 of my co-founders, Allison and Greg, I knew that I wanted to honor her memory. And she was somebody who believed in me when I was a child growing up, believed I could do anything. She's the first person to encourage me to write. And I wanted to create an organization where every day I would do work in her memory.
What difficulties did you have to face for getting people to an organization like this?
That's a great question. I don't know that it was necessarily difficulties. I think in the beginning it was a lot of faith and a lot of intuition. And it just felt to me like the universe was just having people show up at the right time, or spaces were showing up, like our little studio space in Red Bank. So I do think that, because I hadn't had necessarily a background in starting a business or running a nonprofit, a lot of it was just in communication with other individuals and organizations. So like I said, my co-founders, we worked really well together to envision the organization and make it happen. So I think that in the beginning, it was just getting the word out and letting people know. And I think that's still a big part of perhaps the challenges we face, is that I don't think unless you're in a writing class and you experience it, you really can know the benefit of it. It's showing writing as art, writing as healing, writing as a way to express yourself, writing as imagination and creation and possibilities, writing to share our stories, so that if I read my story and you hear my story and I hear yours, we're connected because I know what you've been through. So I think it's translating that message for people who don't consider themselves writers, who have never experienced a writing class, to know that anyone can do this. Every single person has the stories, and we story tell all day long. So it's just, how do we take those stories and put them on paper in a way that we can then share it with another individual? So for me, it's just about, I guess the challenge is really just getting the word out and the message out about just how incredible, magical, valuable, and inspiring writing can be for not only the individual, but also for the other person who's hearing the story.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, because I, also think that, I always think of expressing myself with my words, because, if you are not able to talk to someone or anything, you just want to write it down somewhere. And, you just feel that I have told someone my feelings. So it's a great way to express yourself.
Yeah, no, you know what you're saying about expressing yourself, and this is why I feel it's so important for young people to have this opportunity, because there's so much that we have going on inside, and as we're trying to make sense of who we are and how we relate to the world around us, and there's so many questions or thoughts that are going through our heads. So to have the tool of putting your thoughts down on paper and helping you process whether it's an emotional reaction you're having or questions that you're having or just trying to make sense of anything that's operating around you. I just think it's so valuable, and I think it's a great tool, especially for young people to have. And that's why it's really important for us to be doing programs with youth and teen, and especially in school districts.
Writing had helped me a lot during my life because I always was, a bright student, studying at school, just doing the study work and all, but, not a way to express myself. So I, just used to write down whatever I was feeling at night, maybe sometimes sad, sometimes happy. So I started maintaining a book in which I wrote everything and anything that happened in life. So it, really helped me to, express myself in a way when there are certain things we cannot talk to someone about, not your friends, not your family, and best way to express it is with a pen and paper, I guess.
That's wonderful. And that's what we tell students is the pen, your writer's notebook and your pen, it's your friend, it's your companion. It's someone who will always, always listen. And then the other thing I love about writing and what you're saying is I love dating what I write in journals, because it really is the only way for you to know exactly what you were thinking and feeling on that particular time in your life. So I tell students 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, you'll open, I mean, I have my middle school journals and I open that up. I mean, that's going back like 40 years. And I open it up and I see, wow, January of 1981, this is what I was thinking and feeling. And there's no other place to capture that. And I think also looking back on your writing, you see how far you've grown. So you see what's still the same, what's still what you're still thinking about or wrestling with, but then you also see how much you've matured, how you've grown in your thought process and even in your emotional responses.
Yeah, it's best way to capture a memory by writing it down. And when you read through it after many years, I don't know about many years, but when I read what I wrote during the pandemic, or maybe 2-3 years back, I totally feel that how I felt at that moment by reading through my words.
Exactly. Yeah, and you can look at a photograph and you can see the setting is or who you were with, but you don't have that insight into what you were literally thinking in that moment. And if you open your journal and you see the date, you're like, oh, this is exactly what I was thinking and feeling. So I agree with you.
How has your life as a teacher was affected due to COVID?
We were affected, and the one thing about writing is that we were able to move all of our classes that we had in person in our studio in Red Bank, New Jersey, online. And we have a great staff, a great team of instructors. So we trained over the course of 48 hours and moved all of our classes online. When the pandemic started, one of the groups that we were really concerned about were teens, especially, our teens in our organization. So we reached out and had all the teens come together and talk about what they needed. And it was community and it was connection. So many teens were feeling isolated. And we knew that through the power of writing and expressing and sharing stories that teens would feel more connected. And we were so excited that we had so many teens last year come together. And what they wanted was a place to go to have resources. So it's really all of our teens who designed PWN Teen. They even came up with the name. They helped us with the logo. They helped us with the colors, with the branding. And we're so excited to have this programming for teens because it is evolving. And even, our doing this talk today was your idea and other teen interns' ideas. And so for us, it's about what do teens get excited about? What are they passionate about? And how can we make that happen for them? We welcome teens of all over the world to come and participate in our programming. I got to meet you because we went virtual. Our doors opened outside of the Red Bank area, and we shifted from saying, we are creating a teen writing community to saying we are creating a global teen writing community. And our conversation here today is proof of one of the benefits that happened to our organization through the pandemic. So we're lucky that, pen and paper is not too complicated when it comes to trying to do something on a class on Zoom, unlike gymnastics or art even. But I think the biggest benefit for us and how we were affected is that our doors widen. We now have students from all over the country. Our teen community is reflective of a worldwide experience.
So, how did you find about your love for writing?
There's two stories. One is I was 9 or 10. I went to a Catholic school, an elementary school, and my teacher at the time, actually she was my 3rd grade teacher and my 5th grade teacher, Ms. Dempsey, she had us write on Fridays. We wrote little stories, and I just was always so excited on Friday to write those stories. But even more, it was during my middle school years, and I'm somebody who, I deal with some mental health issues. I have anxiety, I have panic, and that was coming out originally when I was in middle school, and I would talk to my mother about it, and she would tell me, go write, just go write. And I would be like, Mom, I have all these crazy thoughts in my head. And she would say, don't you think Stephen King has crazy thoughts in his head? Just go sit down and write. So that's how I started my love of writing. And what I found is that's where it started. And that's where, when I was probably 12 or 13, I'm like, I want to do something with writing. And at the time I thought, I want to be a journalist. I want to do magazine editing. I did not ever think that I would be a teacher until I was working for a magazine. I was a magazine editor. It was a educational nonprofit that published Education Week and Teacher Magazine. And I started working and covering stories and looking at what was happening in education. And that's when I fell in love with education. I was like, I need to go back and become a teacher. So that's sort of how that happened.
The last thing I wanted to ask were tips about writing, and I also thought that we could talk about the fact that we both are from India.
So the tip I have for writing is, it's kind of what my mother said to me. I guess it's her words. Go write. Just sit down and write. Nothing has to be perfect coming out. I mean, that's the big thing with students, is saying, just start somewhere and it's going to be changed at some point. So it's just about getting your ideas down on paper. And then the India part is very exciting for me because my dad was born in India and came over in 1952. And I grew up on Long Island in the 1970s, 80s. And at the time, my father was very much about, you're American, we're American. And for me, there's always been a part of my heart that has wanted to know more about my heritage and my culture. And so that's why I'm very excited to talk to you. And in recent years, more so as I've been getting older and older, I've been, trying to embrace my cultural heritage even more, and, hope to one day go to India and maybe even see you. But it's funny because a lot of my writing that I do, a lot of my personal writing, so I'm working on a young adult novel and I'm working on a screenplay, and both of those pieces are about biracial identity and growing up, with a white mother and an Indian father. And then also, for me, I was always very close to my mother, and my father was a lot older than my mother. And, he grew up actually in India during British rule. So I think in my writing, I may have created, or I did create Project Right Now in memory of my mother, but I'm writing in search of my father and I'm in search of my identity. So that's kind of what my writing journey has been lately.
I am an Indian and I love India, and I would love if you would, visit someday and come to my home, actually.
Yes.
I thought, what were people's reaction when you told them about, PWN, that, I am going to start a certain, organization that is, totally about writing.
So, it's so funny because when I started talking about it, so many people would say to me, what do you know about running a nonprofit? And I would say, nothing. I know nothing. But I do believe so much because I've experienced it. I've taught writing. I've, been in writing classes before. I do know a lot about the teaching of writing. And I know that it's an important experience for people to have. So that's where I say a lot of it was faith and intuition that guided me in the beginning. And then again, relationships with my co-founders, with the staff. I did take some nonprofit management classes to help out, but other than that, it really was just something that came to me. It was an idea I had, and because I didn't know a lot, I just did it. I think if I knew more about it, I may have been like, wow, that's kind of a big thing, a big undertaking to do. So, teens are so important to us, and just being able to bring teens together and give you an opportunity to use your creativity, connect with other teens, express yourself, tell your story. Like, that is so important to us.
Yeah, that is amazing. I totally agree with it because, the mental health and everything was, very much harmed due to the pandemic, and writing is the best solution. Even I agree with that.
Thank you guys for joining us for our second episode of Off the Page, and stay tuned for our next one. Thank you.